Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a massive shift that's happening right in our own backyards: the sudden public backlash against US data centers. For years, we've kind of thought of the cloud as this invisible, magical, floating vault for our photos, our streaming movies, and our apps. But guess what? The cloud isn't just magic. It's steel, concrete, and spinning fans. It's transformed from a sleek digital concept into a very physical reality, and it's sparking some intense local battles. Let's unpack exactly why that is. Section 1. The Data Center Panic. To figure out where this recent panic actually started, we need to look across the Atlantic. A curious observer in Sweden recently asked a totally viral question. Why do American data centers in the news sound like, and I quote, mini Chernobyls? Language online gets incredibly sensationalized really fast. People were literally joking that if you believed the click-chasing media coverage, living near a US data center would have you growing a third eye. But honestly, that sensationalism perfectly captures the deep frustration of everyday people reacting to alarming stories about polluted water, skyrocketing electric bills, and angry neighbors. So we really gotta ask, why did the cloud suddenly become so controversial? How did we go from the frictionless promise of invisible storage to massive physical warehouses filled with giant transformers and fierce political fights? It seems like almost overnight, these buildings became the physical symbol of the AI boom, and people started looking around, wondering why their specific community was suddenly carrying the burden. And this brings us right to the core tension driving the controversy. It's like a giant tug of war. On one side, industry defenders argue that most sites are completely quiet, strictly compliant with the law, and hey, people don't complain when massive regular warehouses go up. But on the flip side, critics point to rushed outliers, like a highly controversial build in Memphis tied to gas turbines and air pollution permits. They argue these outliers cause genuine harm and completely flout the rules. To put this into perspective, industry defenders are quick to point out a pretty massive number. There are over 5,000 data centers currently operating in America right now, 5,000. Their argument is that it's fundamentally unfair to take one or two ugly, poorly managed outliers and use them to slap a guilty verdict on the entire industry. You just can't judge 5,000 facilities by the mistakes of a handful. Section 2. The real power bottleneck. All right, as we peel back the layers here, it becomes clear that the real issue isn't just community ignorance. It's speed. Think of it as a four-step domino effect. Step 1, we have this unprecedented AI compute boom demanding absolutely insane amounts of power. Step 2, companies scramble to build data centers to meet it. But then we hit step 3. This construction is completely outpacing the utility grid. Nuclear and gas plants take years, sometimes decades to build. So how do they bridge the gap? Step 4, a heavy reliance on backup generators. The infrastructure literally cannot keep up with the speed of the AI gold rush.
And here's the crucial point. What happens when power demand arrives faster than utility capacity? Well, the industry views these giant diesel or gas generators strictly as tightly controlled emergency backups. But the community? They see it entirely differently. Residents start to worry that backup is just primary power generation by another name. Even if the fear is a bit overstated sometimes, the suspicion totally sticks. People feel like their neighborhoods are being forced to breathe the emissions of a temporary workaround just so a tech company can hit its deadline.
Section 3. Noise and neighborhoods. Let's talk about the most visceral, physical complaint communities have: the persistent hum of the cloud. You know, noise isn't just a universal given. It is highly and sometimes annoyingly site-specific. If you have a well-designed facility with the latest liquid cooling, deep setbacks from property lines, and massive acoustic barriers, it might be a completely silent, boring neighbor. But poorly sited, relying on loud chillers and ignoring local topography, that can quickly become a relentless low-frequency headache for anyone nearby. It's definitely not a one-size-fits-all problem. We also really can't ignore the emotional weight of this. Unlike a hospital, a school, or even a grocery store, a data center feels incredibly alien to a neighborhood. It's a giant, windowless, blank box. It absolutely does not welcome the public inside. So when that mysterious box also happens to hum loudly all night, resentment builds like wildfire. Even a modest amount of noise feels 10 times worse when local residents feel entirely excluded from the benefits of the building creating it. Section 4. Regulating the cloud. This brings us to the messy reality of oversight. Let's loop back to that initial comparison between the US and Europe. The easy answer you'll hear is, oh, Europe just has higher standards.
But actually, scratch that. It's way too simple. In Sweden, you've got a naturally cooler climate, a cleaner grid, and centralized regulation. Crucially, they use district heating, meaning the heat generated by the servers is literally reused to warm local homes. Now look at the US context. Wildly varied climates, a heavily strained power grid, almost zero district heating, and a highly fragmented system. These structural factors make a massive difference. It's not just about who has better rules. The playing fields are fundamentally different.
Speaking of the US, it's not a total lack of rules. America actually has a chaotic, deeply layered patchwork of federalism. We're talking federal EPA rules, state guidelines, county zoning, municipal codes, local utility requirements, the whole shebang. The result, one town might aggressively demand noise walls and strict water studies, while the very next county over rolls out the red carpet and waives regulations just to secure the tax revenue. That wild inconsistency is exactly why the worst cases end up making national headlines.
Section 5, the complicated jobs argument.
Whenever a new data center is proposed, the big economic promise is always jobs, but it's not a perfectly clean win. On the pro-data center side, these projects absolutely bring massive, lucrative construction jobs, especially for the electrical trades, plus the promise of huge tax revenues. However, skeptical residents are left asking the tough questions. What happens when the construction crews pack up and leave? A massive warehouse might only employ a handful of permanent security and IT staff. Residents worry they'll be stuck bearing the local nuisance, while seeing their own utility bills rise just to subsidize a massive corporate power load.
Section 6, the real story is trust.
Ultimately, beyond the megawatts, the noise decibels, and the zoning laws, the emotional core of this entire explainer is the breakdown of trust between the tech industry and local communities. I absolutely love this quote from our source material. Trust is like cooling capacity. You only notice how badly you needed it after it fails. Right now, media panic and industry arrogance are just feeding off of each other. When community concerns get dismissed as ignorant hysteria, trust plummets. When a Blink warehouse acts badly, the public naturally assumes guilt across the board. The only real antidote here is total transparency, bringing the actual receipts for water usage, noise models, and tax deals to prove they're acting in good faith. So, the curtain has officially been pulled back. For years, data centers hid in the background while we happily enjoyed streaming media, banking apps, and the shiny new wonders of AI. But the buildings are huge, the power demand is visible, and the cloud is undeniably physical again. I want to leave you with this provocative thought. As the cloud becomes physical, who should truly bear the local cost of our global digital footprint? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time as we keep breaking down the complex world around us.